last visit, when they become lucid, it's just really mind-blowing. And then when they pass shortly after that, it's just affirmation that there's another version of themselves that is uncoupled from local space-time, that lives in a timeless state, that can kind of invest as much of their consciousness into this physical life as they want. And it's changed the way that I look at people, like, for example, Down syndrome, or, as you said, dementia, or physical deformities, or traumatic brain injuries. That person isn't just the individual that you see sitting in their tilt-a-space wheelchair. They have this other aspect of themselves on the other side that's fully conscious, and I sort of find myself talking to both of them sometimes, and it's interesting how they respond sometimes. It's almost like they recognize what you're talking about, but they can't really express themselves very well. So I don't just see a sad case in a wheelchair anymore. I see, when they were fully functional earlier in life, the big lesson here was maybe the love that they could give to other people and service to others and all that. And then when you lose your faculties and you lose your ability to tune into this frequency band of reality and your consciousness goes back onto the other side, your higher self actually gains information and benefit from the other people that are giving you love now. And part of your lesson here is to let your independence be lost. Let other people take care of you. And the lesson in that is that no one here is an island, that we're all connected to one another in a very intimate way. And when you're incapacitated, by you allowing other people to give you love and attention and feed you with a straw, you're actually doing their soul a service, because they may be trying to elevate their consciousness or elevate their service to others or their love muscles, so to speak, and you're providing a really good vehicle for them to do that.
It's interesting. Again, it makes me wonder if we actually do live in the matrix. This again, in the case of my father, I mean, I saw where the doctors explained he virtually had no working brain left, and it was eerie. And it's something, that I guess it's unique. I don't know if he was hallucinating, about with my mom and about the, my uncles and all that stuff. But, the way he was so, and it wasn't for a short period of time. I guess that went on for a couple hours before I got there. He was totally coherent. And I guess, you've seen a lot of that, but I find it very unique that somebody was basically operating with not much more than a brain stem.
Yeah, it is. It's mind-blowing when it happens, and it's very shocking. And one thing I've had really good luck with dementia patients is playing music for them. If I find out what their favorite music was at age 20 and just crank it on, you can find just about anything on YouTube. And I've seen people snap out of catatonia, and their eyes lighten up and maybe they smile, and it's like they're remembering, what their life used to be like. And music is a great medium, and sound in and itself. I don't know if you've ever seen this cymatics videos, where they play a sound and, little salt pebbles, go into all these platonic solid shapes, but there's a lot to vibration and sound and frequency. Tesla always said, if you want to discover reality, just think frequency and vibration. And I think he's right. There's a whole body of material that Dr. Michael Newton put out in his book, Journey of Souls, where he hypnotized people in between lifetimes and found that cross-culturally people say pretty much the same thing, that they have a life review. Sometimes they meet other people that they knew here on Earth or in past lifetimes. And the interesting aspect of it is sometimes you interact with what you would call extraterrestrials or non-humans in between lifetimes. And a friend of mine, Susie Hansen, she wrote a book called The Dual Soul Connection, and she apparently in between lifetimes made an agreement with a particular gray race to kind of cohabitate in a body for a lifetime so that they could learn what it's like to be human. So there's a whole lot of metaphysical aspects to the reality that we're embedded in, and you just have to keep an open mind, listen to people. Even these secret space program 20 and back people, once upon a time, I would have written that off as fiction. But if you read about how time works, there's some really good people like Carlo Rovelli, an Italian physicist. He wrote The Order of Time and Reality is Not What It Seems. And if you absorb all that, I have to tone them down to about 50 to 75%. It's almost like they're drunk when they're talking for me to absorb these ideas because they talk about so much so quickly. But the way time works, I wouldn't really write anything off until I have more knowledge about it.
Well, I had a guest here a couple of weeks ago. She's quite famous in, the secret space, force. She claimed when she was a little girl, she was abducted by the CIA. Basically, they put her in a cell, tortured her to basically mind control her. And then, she claims she was taken to Mars, and she was trained for quite a few years to be in the Space Force. But she also, turned me on to like a attorney in Longview, Washington, that claims too that he was in the secret Space Force, and along with certain other people, and they all seem to connect. They all kind of have the same stories. It makes me think that maybe people are living in, another realm, another universe, another whatever. And it because you think it's strange. Here she is in her 60s, right? But she has adult children in her 20s years old and later 20s. And then you go, well, gee, these don't add up. But then maybe she has she had another duplicate in the parallel universe, which she kind of remembers what that person went through. I don't know.
Yeah, it started out with Mark Ralph decades ago, the Mars records. He married a woman who was a psychotherapist, and he started recalling all of these incidents of him being on Mars. But there's quite a few people coming out of the woodwork now. Jason Rice and Tony Rodriguez and Penny Bradley and Randy Kramer and Corey Good.
Yeah, Penny Bradley, that she was the one on my show.
I've met Penny. She's a really nice person.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were at the Stargate to the Cosmos convention in Albuquerque, New Mexico last October. She's a very nice person. And even Corey Good has had body language experts look at him, and they determined that he's drawing from visual memory. So these secret space program insiders that are giving these testimonies of the 20 and back, William Tompkins said that was real. So we may not know how time works correctly. And even in Carlo Rovelli's material, one of the leading experts on time says that there is such thing as a temporal time loop where you can go out and do all these things and then come right back into the moment that you left. So that was very confirming for me. I just keep an open mind with these folks because they're obviously telling the truth as they understand it. I think hoaxers are very rare, and it would really be embarrassing to be, completely public and on television and YouTube and everything and get busted in a fabrication or something. You'd really have to be a strange psychology to say, I'm going to fabricate this story and, see if I can get in on the action. I don't think that that's happening at all. I think these people have very real memories. They've obviously have detailed experiences, but you know what? Contactees, as far back as you can remember, even William Denton in the 1800s, who took a trip throughout the solar system, they're very detailed and they never miss a beat. You can see Jay Widener on his show question Jason Rice, and Jason never misses a beat. He's right there. I mean, he's taken a polygraph test. They've hypnotically regressed him on camera. And it's hard to accept the objective reality of what they're saying, but we may not live in an objective reality after all.
No.
It's just like Carlo Rovelli said, reality may not be anything that we always assumed that it was. Ever since Isaac Newton came out with his Newtonian physics, there's kind of been these hard science guys that think that 3D reality is all there is, and if it's real, it has to be measured and reproducible. And that may just be an aspect of the measurement fallacy, which is in the list of the master list of logical fallacies online, that if you can't measure it, you can't see it, you can't reproduce it, that it isn't real. That may not even be true.
Well, these are the type, thoughts, though. It's the only way you're going to know if it's real or not. I hate to say it, Russ, is when we pass on. One or two things are going to happen, right? When you pass on, that's end of it, right? Like a blown up computer or a TV. When it burns up, it's over with. It's history. Or we go into another realm, or in a loop and start over again. You know, one thing I did have is a retired detective from New York was on my show a year and a half ago. And he was a detective that worked homicide and all that stuff. So he was trained to do, you know, backgrounds, check people out. He always wanted to be a hypnotist. So he went to school, he became that. And he started doing, because he was interested in past, you know, lives and regressions. And, you know, we were talking about it for 2 hours of some of these people he regressed. And I said, did you ever check up on, because, you know, you were a police, you know, detective. Did you ever check up with some of these stories of some of these people that claim they lived at such and such time where, you know, maybe back 40, 50, 60 years ago, 80 years ago, were you able to check up on some of these people? And he goes, yeah, I did. And that's when I now believe, he said, that people are being reincarnated. He said, before that, I didn't believe it. But he said, I had people on that I regress. They gave me information. I went and checked it out, and it all matched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the University of Virginia is in the process of formulating a theory of reincarnation as we speak. They've got about 2,500 cases of children reporting incidents of prior lives to where their relatives or family members check it out, and it all checks out true. A real famous case is James Langonier, I think is how you pronounce it, who was a pilot in World War II and drove a Corsair and could even tell details like as they went down the runway, they'd have a tendency to drift to the left, and things he couldn't possibly know as a child. He would draw pictures of it and tell about all these buddies that he palled around with and so forth. So his parents, who were fundamentalist Christians and didn't want anything to do with the reincarnation idea, they eventually even had to accept that reincarnation is a reality on some level. We don't know if it happens to everybody or how soon it is or whatnot, but there's 2 or 3 universities now that are devoting departments to reincarnation studies. And another big one is consciousness studies. The late Dr. Edgar Mitchell really helped out with that and the Free Organization, but there's many theories of consciousness coming out of the woodwork from very high-level, PhD-level scientists. Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff came up with their ORCH theory, orchestrated objective reduction, where in microtubules in the neurons in our cells, our consciousness is actually on the cloud somewhere. And then when your body dies, your body goes back into the earth, and your consciousness is actually retained in this other cloud-like realm, sort of like a computing cloud. And John Wheeler, physicist, he had 3 stages in his careers. He first started out, everything is particles. Then he went to another phase where he said everything is waves. And then before he passed on, he said everything is information. So we may be talking about some sort of informational field that permeates everything. And all of the scientists are trying to figure out how all this works, how gravitational fields and electromagnetic fields and the space-time fabric, which is now considered like a gelatinous mollusk. You can put a clock on Jupiter and a clock on Saturn and a clock on Earth, and they'll all 3 run 3 different time cycles. So time isn't a consistent. I was always brought up to think that there was a consistent moment of the present that existed throughout the entire universe, exactly like how I'm perceiving it, and that's not true at all. Time passes slower on the surface of the Earth than it does in the mountains.
Oh, it does. Hey, our time is almost up. I want to give you the next 5 minutes to promote your book. Again, tell everybody the name of the book, where they can find it, if you have a website, all this. Go ahead and sell it.
Okay, well, in 2016, I had a mountain of notes to myself following my near-death experience in 2009, and I compiled them into a very readable book that people seem to like. It's called Overlords of the Singularity, The Manipulation of Humankind by Hidden UFO Intelligences and the Quest for Transcendence, long subtitle. But it's on Amazon.com in both Kindle version and in a printed version. It's 545 pages. And it tells all about the near-death experience, the excursion into ghost literature. A lot of the classic cases are discussed, all theory, the ultra-terrestrials, all of it. So anybody's welcome to friend me. My name's Russ Brenniger, like vinegar with a BR, or I do have an Overlords of Singularity public page.